we could talk about what we think people think group is, and maybe that's what keeps them from being more excited about it or something in that vein.
Yeah, I like that. As a first podcast, that seems like a good
Hmm.
sort of like segue into even like why we're doing this. Are we like doing the podcast right now? Is this actually,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna edit it.
we're here talking about group. Here
Hmm.
we are.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
You are listening to the Present Moment Process podcast, the official podcast of the Asheville Group Psychotherapy Society, with your hosts Chris Byrne and Sarah Simpson. But
So,
it seems like that your and my experience in certain therapist circles is people don't seem to grasp the gravity or importance of this work and like what all it can entail, both for members and leaders, what it
hmm
requires of leaders and members.
yes.
There seems to be like a missing piece for some people. Otherwise, it seems like everyone should be obsessed with it. At least that's how you and I feel.
Right, yeah. Or there's a missing piece or missing pieces, but something almost like some
Hmm.
core element of it that they don't know about or they're not understanding.
Hmm.
Yeah, it makes me think of what attracted me to group initially.
Hmm.
And that was because my wife was in a process group, but I don't even remember her talking to me too much about it, you know? I mean, I was always interested in therapy. She was in her process group before I was even in grad school to become a therapist, but I think I knew at that point that that was like something I wanted to do eventually. And she had been in a group for several years.
Do you remember how
And she
she
would tell me
got turned on to the group?
one of her good friends' sisters is a therapist and a group advocate, group lunatic like we are, and referred her. I think my wife was looking for an individual therapist, and she got referred to Jeannie Bunker, who's a well-known group therapist on the faculty at CGS. Seems like a badass. Anyway, and then I guess she met with Jeannie and got convinced to join one of her groups based on what she was wanting to work on at the time.
But she didn't really talk to you about it much, about her experience in the group.
Well, I mean, she talked to me about it, but I don't nothing stands out. I just remember being like, that's interesting. Like you go to like a group, like is it like a support group? Is it like a and she from my vague memory like explained kind of what it was and it seemed like just sort of anything goes. Stuff comes up, people are getting mad at one another or connecting or just having real conversations.
Hmm.
But I don't have any specific memories of anything that she said about like, oh yeah, this thing happened in group and it was it's interesting that yeah, nothing really stands out in my mind. But I
Hmm.
knew about group and it seemed like this kind of unknown, uncertain, like very different therapeutic experience
Hmm.
than just going to individual therapy. And she ended up being in that group for like 7 years or something, 6 or 7 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So then when I was looking for a new therapist or wanted to like try out someone different, and I had heard about this guy, John Howard, who ultimately became my supervisor, and went to see him for an individual consult. And I didn't know that he also led groups, and he started talking to me about his groups. He was also very expensive, so I kind of realized like, yeah, this guy's not going to be a regular individual therapist for me. But he was like talking about groups and said a little bit about why group is great. I think what he told me that stood out was that it's like graduate level therapy. It almost felt like he was trying to sell it to me in this like sort of like appealing to my ego kind of way of like you like seems like you've done all this work. It's like graduate level therapy and but he made it sound interesting and fun and like dynamic. And then I knew my wife was in the group, so I was like, yeah, I think that sounds cool.
So you joined John's group?
Yes, I joined John's group, and that was in the summer of 2016. And that was also what sort of like pushed me over the edge to go to grad school because I had been wanting to go to grad school to become a therapist for a while. And but there was always like, I had two kids and was working full time, and it just seemed kind of like a daunting thing. But that came up in group one day, and John was like, "Well, yeah, actually, the school nearby, St. Ed's, they have a program that like caters to, working professionals," was the way he phrased it. But I think it was just like a lot of grad schools that they have classes that they offer at night. And I think I was so jazzed about group, and that had even fueled more of my passion about wanting to be a therapist, that I went down to St. Edward's University like the next day or something and talked to the admissions person, and within like a couple of weeks I was applying and
Nice.
and accepted for the fall semester. So that kind of began my becoming a therapist journey.
Yeah, that speaks to maybe just the power of talking about something in front of a group of people. Like
Right, right. It was one of those things where I was
knowing,
like,
just knowing that they now know you have this dream and the collective in your mind can just, yeah, help with accountability and
yeah,
motivation.
yeah, the power of like being seen in that way. Because I had been talking to so many different people in my life over the, previous several years. I had my sister-in-law is a therapist, and I had a couple of friends who were therapists. So always kind of like talking shop with them or just being interested in what they were doing, and they were always encouraging me. But in that group session that day, it was like one of those things where I was complaining about my job, and I had this like super cushy sales job that I could totally like phone in half the time. So it's just funny that I was complaining about it. I had a lot of flexibility at that job, but I was complaining. I think I just didn't feel fulfilled. I was like, I can't imagine doing this shit for, the rest of my life. And John and the other there, he had a co-leader. I think she was an associate therapist that was co-leading with him, and she was quite good. Her name was Claire. I
Hmm.
think she asked me the question of like, well, like, what would you want to do if you could do anything? And I was like, I think I would want to be a therapist like you guys. Kind of felt a little weird about saying it, but um, and yeah, I think the group also was like very like, yeah, we could totally see you doing that. That's makes sense. And then John told me about the thing, and I was just like, that just lit a fire under my butt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, definitely the power of the collective encouragement, and also just being like seen and
Hmm.
validated in that too. I think
Yeah.
for whatever reason in that group, I mean, I've had different experiences in different groups, but I don't know, like part of my role or one, I guess, and it feels weird to say this, but like some aspect of my role in that group or some ways that I showed up, because I didn't know what group was or like how to do group or it's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, so I would say things to people early on in response. I wasn't trying to be the therapist, but I think I was very into Buddhism at that point. So if someone was like talking about some issue they had with their wife or something, I just remember I was listening to Jack Kornfield's, he has some audio program called The Roots of Buddhist Psychology, and I
Mm-hmm.
was really into that at that point in time. So I would just have these responses or thoughts. It wasn't, I wasn't definitely wasn't sharing my feelings, but sometimes I would just like respond in this like Buddhist inspired way, and people were like, yeah, I don't know. I just got good feedback in that group, so I think it bolstered my
Mm-hmm.
sense of self in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Imagine you'd show up differently in that group now, knowing what you know about group theory and.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Mm.
I'm sure I would. Yeah, because it's like you don't know what you don't know. So I was
Mm.
just like totally open. Or I think also John, the leader, was a little bit of a sort of renegade kind of therapist. Like he would just say off the cuff stuff and, be very evocative. And I feel like that gave me permission to be evocative as well. Yeah, I enjoyed that group a lot. It was really
Do you
fun.
think
So
he
yeah,
was coming from a modern analytic?
no, no. I thought about that since then. I don't know where he was coming from, but I enjoyed his leadership at the time. Looking back now, knowing what I know, there are moments where I'm like, I don't know if that was like the best move or like what was he trying to do there. But I still think, I mean, he had
Mhm.
like four groups. They were always full.
Mm,
So he was doing something right, I guess. But he was
hmm.
not modern analytic.
Okay.
Yeah, he was mainly a couples therapist. That was like his specialty. I don't know how that, if that informed how he led groups, but yeah, it's interesting how,
So, what
just,
was he maybe not doing that the modern analytic group leader would do now that you
well,
know?
I didn't even know what this was at the time, but right, like in terms of knowing what we know now and looking back, he definitely was not bridging.
Mm.
Or maybe in some subtle ways he was. I'm sure there was like some of that, but it wasn't like things that you and I would identify as or Montian bridging or yeah, there seemed to be less maybe less emphasis on the group as a whole, possibly, but it's again, this is like 10 years ago, so it's hard to remember. Yeah, I think he would insert himself a little bit more, or maybe that's not the right word, but say things. Well, I was in that group for a couple months. That was so 2016. That was when Trump got elected, and that group met on Tuesdays. So I think if I'm not mistaken, if my memory is that I came into that group and it was the day after the election, right? Because isn't it on a Monday? I don't know, but pretty much the whole group was upset and pissed. And I remember saying something like, because I was very angry about it too, and I remember saying something like I hope the CIA, takes care of him, or like they assassinated Kennedy, then maybe they'll get him out of here. And other people were saying things like that, and John said something like, "Yeah, I think people are like really getting stupider as time goes on. Like our ability to like hold complexity is diminished." And like basically he was just commenting on the fact that, yes, this is upsetting, but like maybe it's not all bad or something like that. And I remember just being like, what the fuck? Like, why is that the thing you're saying?
You still have that reaction today.
In a different way, maybe? I don't know, because it felt like he was commenting more on what I was saying, and I felt insulted by him. So,
He was calling
um,
you stupid and not able to hold complexity.
yeah, and some
Yeah.
of the other people in the group too, which I'm like, that's like very direct. That doesn't seem like a modern analytic, and not that everything we do has to be modern analytic, but it seemed like it was coming from
Hmm.
his own like narcissistic sort of like ego, like I'm so good at holding complexity,
Yeah.
and also I'm like, is that true? Have people gotten stupider? Maybe I don't know, but I
Yeah.
felt insulted, and I remember I told him, I think I told him that I felt hurt
Hmm.
by his comment, and or maybe he brought it up in the next session because I think it was pretty clear. It was like that wasn't a thoughtful thing to say, or maybe I don't know if it wasn't thoughtful, but anyway, like it was clear that like that was like had some negative impact because then when I think in the next group he said, yeah, Claire, the other therapist, and I were talking after group and how I had made that comment about people getting stupider and um or yeah, it was kind of like he named it, but he wasn't saying like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that," or "I wish I hadn't said that." It was more of the doing the therapist thing of like, "Yeah, I said this thing," and like, "Yeah, I realized maybe that wasn't like, could have
Hmm.
said that in a different way or something." And
That could have
um,
been, little, we don't know, but it could have been that he was beating himself up as you and I are wont to do after
that's a
saying things we wish we hadn't said, but then he comes back in where we try to be pretty calm
yes,
about it and not convey how much we've been suffering over our
that's
error.
such a good point, and you present it in a way of like, we're trying to just see how the group reacts without going directly into like saying I'm sorry or
Hmm.
again, it was so long ago. I don't remember if he asked me like, "How did that impact you?" I think I said I was mad at him or something.
Which is a great thing to practice. At least you had
Yeah.
that experience of being able to express the emotion, which so
Yeah.
often doesn't happen.
Also, interesting, you asked the question about would I do things differently or would I view things differently, knowing what I know now. The way that I left that group
Mm.
was less than ideal because
Mm.
I really admired John and looked up to him, and I knew very early on I wanted to kind of like learn from him. And I was, so I'd started grad school and I had heard from another friend of mine who was in another one of his groups that he was starting a couples therapy training group, and he was like very renowned, like well known, highly regarded couples therapist in Austin, Texas. And I got excited of like, oh yeah, this is like a great opportunity to learn from him, which was funny because I was only in like my second semester at grad school. So like joining a couples therapy training group with like other therapists and stuff. But he was like, sure, yeah, you can totally join the group. And I said, well, I know that I can't do both. Like I can't be in your group
Mm,
and, also kind of have this other relationship with you. So we talked about it. He's like, well, yeah, then I think you can leave the group. He's like, if you want, yeah, next week can be your last session. So there was not like any time, or maybe it was like two groups, but I felt like it was just very hurried. And
mm,
maybe that was because the couples therapy training group was starting soon. But I felt like
mm,
the way, yeah, it felt very quick. The group was taken aback. They were like, wait, why are you leaving? Like, what? And it also felt like this like secret or something that John and I
mm,
had. Like because we didn't come out and say John's starting a training group and I want to join it. It was more like John was like, oh, Chris needs to pursue some other like training stuff. Or yeah, it was very weird. And the group was just
mm.
like, what? Like, why are you leaving?
Oh,
So I would never do that as a leader.
right.
Or or even if I was a member in a group, I would be like, whoa, whoa, this feels fast. Like I don't want to leave right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that part of the leaving was, not great, but I feel like what that group did for me or part of what it did for me was really give me like a better sense of the way that I impact people positively. I mean, there was stuff that, negative stuff and or difficult, whatever, like challenging interpersonal stuff that came up, but the people started giving me feedback knowing that it was my last day, and one of the members in the group who was kind of this like don't take any shit, from anyone, kind of tough woman. Like, yeah, she was great. I really liked her. But she was like, you're one of the only men that I feel safe with. And I
Oh,
was like, whoa. Like she had never told me that in the group prior to that. And just has said some other things that like was really, really touching and really like made me cry like a lot in that group.
oh,
It was like hearing these things from people.
yeah,
Yeah, it just was like, wow, it really impacted how I like view myself because, I think that's how in relationships how we view ourselves is impacted by the relationships that we have. And,
totally.
there is no self without other kind of thing. And
Right.
doesn't mean like it's all good or it's all, but I don't know. It was just a very powerful, like, that always stands out with me or
Yeah,
stands out to me.
yeah. Being seen in a way you hadn't before,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
or at least having it voiced. Maybe others
Hmm.
had seen you that way, but not voiced it.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I think, one of the really powerful things about group is getting to know or experience and hear how you impact others in all the ways, in ways that might surprise you that are positive or ways that might be a little like, oh no, do I really impact you in that way? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Give you some stuff to look at. But either way, helps you to see things that you're maybe not seeing or you're not really clear on.
Hmm. I definitely want to revisit at some point that leaving scenario and yeah, maybe just talk about that as an example of one way it can go. Um,
Hmm.
just the modern
Yeah.
analytic ideas around terminating group, how
Yeah.
that's done, and the transparency in group in general through that approach. Like no kind of secrets like that. Yeah, that's yikes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my memory is that like it felt like because he kind of was like presenting that part of my leaving to the group or, was the one that was saying something about it. And just the way he said it, I got the sense of like, oh, I'm not supposed to
Mm,
say that I mean, I already felt like a little sheepish that I was leaving the group to join his
mm,
training group. So then
mm.
it was like, oh, well, he's saying it in a way that's not saying exactly what it is. So then maybe I shouldn't say it. So like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
right.
Was it your first group experience, the one that you were in with those two guys, or
It was
was you
with
had been in
Pamela.
Pamela?
Hmm.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hmm.
So you were in Pamela's group
Hmm.
for how many years the first
Just a
time?
year and 4 months. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, she'd been my supervisor since 2016. And early on in my work with her, she had mentioned that she runs groups by way
Uh,
of, suggesting I try. And I didn't because of money, which was legit. I had very little money. I mean, I was doing therapy for free and working at a record store 3 days a week. So, and felt like I had enough on my plate as far as learning how to be a therapist. But yeah, then one of her group members who I was kind of acquaintances with mentioned being in Pamela's group, and that sparked an interest that just kind of simmered. And then I saw that same woman at three different, maybe just two different farmers markets, and thought, the universe wants us to meet and talk. So I invited her to coffee, and we ended up talking a lot about group. And then I reached out to Pamela like that day and
uh,
joined her group and was in it for a year and 4 months and wasn't especially like enamored with group right away. It didn't actually sink in the awesomeness of it until I decided to leave that group, which was
uh,
because Pamela raised her fee by $15.
oh wow. That
Yeah.
seems like that's a jump.
Yeah. She gave us like 2 months notice, and I said I didn't want to pay that much, so that I was probably going to leave when the fee raised. And that is what I ended up doing. It was somewhat stubborn on my part. I could have paid it, I just didn't want to. And I wasn't getting that much out of the experience. So I left, but as soon as I made the decision to leave, the desire to lead my own group came to the surface, which is very much a pattern for me. Like, I very often will want to teach the thing or do the thing or lead the thing that I'm
Uh,
learning about.
does that help you to feel like you're learning more about it if you're teaching it or if you're doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just like teaching and leading, I think. Like,
Hmm.
even when I learned how to knit, I started teaching knitting, like,
Yeah, I remember. I remember you told me about the knitting class. That was in New Mexico, right?
hmm
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I just started reading about it. Got some book recommendations from Pamela and watched the group series, on YouTube. And
Had you already been to any of the CGS?
no, but I did. So I quit Pamela's group in January, studied, 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 obsessed, 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 and then did CGS in May.
Okay, that's so interesting that you left the group because you weren't because the fee was getting raised and you said you weren't getting that much out of it, but something about that group experience
Yeah,
inspired you in some way about the power of group and
yeah, for
I
sure.
mean enough to get
Yeah.
you to be studying and reading and doing all the things and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what largely inspired me was Pamela and watching her work and being like, oh my God, I could never do this. Like, this is so much to navigate and balance. And
What was that like watching her work? Did
um
she seem like she had like Jedi powers? That's always the thing with certain group leaders that I've like seen or been. I mean, even Big John's group. Sometimes I was like, is he like what's his deal? Is he even human? I don't know. He would just like see things or respond to things in a certain way that I was just like, how did
mm,
he think of that so fast?
right, yeah. Yeah, there's certainly an element of that. And just being very like sturdy in herself and
Mm.
never really seeming afraid or shaky at all.
Hmm.
Yeah, never taking anything personally, always just open and wanting to explore. And yeah, just really good at slowing things down and going deeper with stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And there's something about like watching and experiencing that and watching that happen that like made you want to learn more and be able to
Yeah,
facilitate groups.
I want to be able to do that.
I think, yeah, John in my first group, I mean, it almost seems like he made it look easier than it is in
Yes.
some way. even though I knew it wasn't like easy, but it just seemed so easy for him. Like he was so sturdy, and
Hmm.
I think I was a little naive in how
Yeah.
simple I thought leading groups was.
Yeah. I
And it
mean,
was
that was probably allowed you to do it, right? Take
right,
the lead.
right. Yeah, to be stupid enough to
Yeah. Right. The
exactly.
unconscious incompetence that we all start
Yes.
with.
Hmm. That's the good part.
Yeah.
Is when you have the conscious incompetence is when it starts to be a bit of a bummer. But that's when you're actually learning because you know that you
Right. You know what you don't know.
right. You're aware of all the things that you
Can't do.
should, yeah, and want to learn to be able to do.
Right. Yeah, and you're also learning so much if you are really into it and studying and reading like we do.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're just becoming more and more aware of all the things you could do and just aren't able to do yet for various
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah. How was your experience in leaving that first group with Pamela? Does anything stand out? Just any memories of things that
Well,
you
yeah, I
kind of,
mean, people were, saying, I feel like you're just being stubborn. I was kind of agreeing with them. Yeah, this is a thing I can be stubborn about. I had a chip on my shoulder about how much therapists charge, and
uh-huh.
I still do but to a lesser degree. I get it more now. Yeah, and just yeah, they were sad. They didn't want me to go. Part of me didn't want to go, but part of me really did. I never felt like super connected with those people.
Hmm.
And it was, 2 months of, them knowing that I was going to leave, which is quite different from your experience.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you had 2 months.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, she
wow.
told us I'm raising my fee in January. That was in October, and I was like, well, that's when I'll leave.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
If
Yeah,
it
so
was
it all
like
kind of
$5, I'd stay. If it was 10, I'd think about it. 15,
right.
I'm out of here.
That that seems like it's like the timing, the way the timing worked out, that like allowed you to have sort of like a long process of leaving, which is kind
Hmm.
of nice
Yeah,
because that's pretty uncommon. I can't think of, it's not like super common where people have decide to leave a group and from the time they decide to their last group where they get that or give themselves or have that much time, it's usually 3 or 4 groups.
right.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we talked about it every time.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. But even just
But it,
knowing that you were going to be leaving. Do you remember
mm-hmm.
anything about how Pamela responded to your objection about the fee being raised and wanting to leave?
The one thing that stands out is that at one point I asked her how she felt about me leaving. And I think a part
Hmm.
of me wanted her to say that she was mad at me, but she said she was sad. She said, I feel sad. Like she said it really emphatically. I remember like her tone.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I would want her to be mad, but
Yeah. So, and how did it impact you when she said she felt sad?
I don't know.
Nothing.
I
Just
don't
didn't
remember
didn't
feeling
do
that
anything
much.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I like that you part of you or that you're yeah, that you know that part of you wanted her to be mad. Um
Mm-hmm. Or
I don't
annoyed or
know.
something. Like maybe
Right.
that was how I wanted to impact her. I don't know. I felt I was mad. I was mad at her. I was also my feelings were hurt about how she did it. It was at a moment in the group we were talking about therapists and what they charge, and or maybe I was talking about it, and I said something about them over valuing themselves or something, like putting themselves on a pedestal, maybe. I was really kind of on my high horse about therapist fees. And then she came in and said, well, I'm actually raising my fee to
Mm.
75 in January. That was the moment she chose, and it felt so shaming and like kind
Oh.
of mean. Like, well,
Mhm.
actually, I'm gonna raise my
Yeah.
fee.
Perfect timing for her to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty bold of her, now that I look back to say it at that time, but it really hurt my feelings. and maybe
Yeah.
they needed to be hurt. Yeah, and then I ended up feeling sad talking about leaving, and she was like, "You seem really sad about leaving." I'm like, I don't think that's why I'm sad. I think I'm sad because you hurt my feelings. How you delivered that information, what moment?
Did she react to that? To you saying that?
Yeah, I think she joined somehow. I don't remember what she said
Oh,
though.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then but she was very supportive in me, I would talk to her as I was studying. We did a couple supervision sessions as I was preparing to start a group, and she told me about CGS, and I signed up for CGS weekend and did that. And I think I was already advertising my group at that point, or maybe I was just about to, and then CGS like sealed the deal for me that I did want to do that. And then I ended up joining an in-person group because I also wanted to experience an in-person group, which Pamela's was
Oh, that's
not.
right. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
So yeah, then I joined the one that was co-led by two men, and that did meet in person, and they had more of a Gestalt approach. And I only did that for
Uh-huh.
6 months because it really wasn't the kind of, I want to be in a group and learn how to be a member, but I also want to be learning from the leaders, and I want their style to resonate with what I'm.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So their approach was often more like individual therapy in a group.
Uh-huh. Like, yeah, working with members more kind of like one-on-one within the group setting.
Yeah, and doing kind of like, I don't know if we ever did full on empty chair, but there would be some very, directed therapy things happening as the others just observed, which was not my favorite. And I
Yeah.
definitely didn't want to be the one in that seat being observed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very different approach to group. I've not heard too much about that. I mean, I've, obviously heard, read about Gestalt, but not in the group setting. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a big component of it, I guess, right? With like Fritz Perls groups at the Esalen Institute.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I'm like the part that you said about like you wanted Pamela to be mad at you for leaving. Did
Mm-hmm.
you, did you ask her that question, how she was feeling towards
Mm.
the end of the 2 months?
Yeah, or like near the middle, maybe.
Yeah.
Wasn't right away, but yeah.
What do
Uh,
you, if that was a group member, I'm just trying to, because I don't want to ask you, like, be like, what do you make of that, Sarah? What's your, because but I wonder if that was like one of our group members and we said we were feeling sad, and I imagine we would be,
mm-hmm.
or at least I would be, and they said they wanted us to be mad.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would.
How would it help you if I was mad?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I wanted to ask you. How
Yeah.
would it help you?
Yeah. I don't know. I have to think about it. But I often am mad when people leave. I mean, I'm usually very sad and often also pissed.
Oh yeah, as a group leader, yeah.
And I imagine
Very.
she was too. I mean, right?
Yeah,
It seems only
maybe you're,
natural. Maybe
yeah.
she's much more experienced with people leaving. Maybe she doesn't actually get as mad anymore, if she ever did. I don't know, but I do.
Yeah, no, totally. It's very frustrating when people leave, even when there's, if it's part of their work or it's a good reason, like a reality reason that they're leaving, but it can be very frustrating as a group leader. But yeah, just hearing that your group leader is also mad with you for leaving, I don't know, maybe that would have been like reassuring or something, or like, say if someone's mad at you, then you had an impact on them as well. So
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I must have sensed that she was mad and was wanting to know that my sense was correct.
Yeah, that
Maybe it
makes
was
sense.
just that. And apparently it was just sadness. I don't know.
Mhm. That's
Still.
very that's also very impressive that you were like, yeah, like I'm gonna lead a group and you just jumped in and started learning all the things. And I mean, how long was it from when you left Pamela's group to when you started your first
Mm.
group?
7 months.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Wow. Were you in the Gestalt group
Hmm.
when you started your own group, or you had left that group too?
I joined that group early June and started my group late July.
Oh, wow.
So a
That's
couple
yeah, that's
months.
impressive. You were like ready to do it.
Yeah. When I decide I want to do this, I fucking do
Yeah, but and it sounds
it.
like you also prepared. You prepared to do it too with all of the,
Yeah.
you were reading a lot and talking to Pamela and yeah,
Yeah.
my course. Oh,
And
sorry.
then
Go ahead.
I ended up leaving that Gestalt group and going back to the Pamela group so that I could keep learning from her.
Okay, so there wasn't like a big gap of when you went back to the Pamela group.
It was a little bigger than I was hoping it would be because she put me off about a month that I didn't realize. So I may have stayed in that first group a little longer had I known that.
Oh,
I left that group on your birthday and joined Pamela's on the day after my birthday, March 20th.
that's and because so you and I met in like July of
We met right when I
2024.
was starting my group. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
My first
I
one.
don't I don't know if I knew that when we met for coffee that day, but then I think we had texted or talked or something, and then you told me you were starting your group.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think I'd quite started it yet, or maybe I just had.
Yeah. That's also an important part of the backstory of, our organization, AGPS, and us, co-leading a group together is that we had that fortuitous day where we met for coffee.
Hmm.
Because I was new to Asheville, and once I got licensed in North Carolina, posted something on the therapist Facebook group about like, I'm just introducing myself, but I really love group therapy. Who are the other group therapists? And you were the only person that responded.
Right.
And then we met up for coffee and, discovered that we both loved group
Hmm.
a lot and,
And
we're obsessed with it.
both watched the group series 3 times.
Yep, yep. Yeah, my first group, I didn't, so I loved group. I knew I loved group and that I wanted to lead groups. And I think I had like read, Ormont's The Group Therapy Experience or parts of it. But my first group leadership was in my graduate internship. I took over someone's group
Hmm.
who was graduating, and actually her group she had already kind of left and broken up the group. But then it was like a very short gap where she had talked to me and knew that I really wanted to lead a group. So she contacted the group members and told them that somebody was willing to lead the group because that was an issue. She couldn't find someone to take over. And the group, it had only been like a few weeks or something since they broke up. So then they all came back together and I started leading that group.
Cool.
And I had like no idea what I was doing.
Was it a process group?
Yes.
Wow.
And
In some kind of group practice?
yeah, I did my internship at a community mental health clinic. They were
Mhm.
like a purely just graduate level therapists that were doing their internship. They had like 80 therapists and it was all comprised of students.
Wow.
So I didn't have really any guidance on that other than talking to my supervisor at that clinic who had no group experience other than leading like maybe like addiction groups and stuff like that.
But you had read Ormont by then.
Right. But that was, I don't, yeah, maybe there was some integrating of that stuff. And I had talked to a friend of mine who was a couple of years ahead of me, and he was working with John Howard, who led the group that I was originally in, and
Hmm.
he had started a group. So he and I had talked a few times, and he would kind of share some like nuggets with me. But other than that, I was going purely off my own experience being in John's group.
But you knew what a process group was. You knew there was supposed to be this here and now focus. Yeah.
Yes. But I think I said, "What are you feeling towards so and so?" like 50 times a group. I
Yeah.
think that was my one main intervention.
How do you think it went?
I think it went great. I mean, for somebody who only had experience of being in a group for a year and a half, and
It went well enough to make you want to keep doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I think I had read the group there or the group series show on YouTube. I think that had come out, so I had seen that somewhere in the middle. I think that group I led that group for like a year almost. And then yeah, there was another therapist that was co-leading with me, and he was like CBT.
Mm.
It was a very weird combo, but he was there for 3 months and then he left, and then I was solo leading, and then another woman that was in my kind of cohort had expressed interest, and she came in and co-led, and she didn't say anything. She just sat there and watched, and I had no idea how to help bring her in.
Mm.
So I feel bad about that. I was like, that probably wasn't good for her or the group. Or maybe it just helped them to get annoyed and frustrated with me and her. And, they several times said they wanted to hear more. They wanted to hear from her. Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
but I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
co-leading, as we know, is a whole other art.
totally. Yeah. But there was a lot that came up in that group. I think as group lead, we often things that can feel overwhelming or intense, or stuff happens in group that we don't always quite know how to navigate, or we're not sure if we responded in the right way. Even when that is happening, it's like it's still good that like that intense stuff is coming up in the group. Like there's I don't just looking back on that group, there was always like it was a very stimulating, energetic group. It was
Mm.
not boring, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's great.
It was all people in their like early 20s. So
Mm. Hmm.
a lot of drama. And
Mm.
then my second group experience was when I got my associate license, and I got hired at the practice that John Howard, my original group therapist, ran and owned. He was also my supervisor, and he knew that I loved groups. So there was another therapist who was leading four groups, and she was going on maternity leave, and he really like pushed. I think he probably told her like, you're gonna let Chris take over one of your groups. So she had four therapists from that practice, each of us sub for one of her four groups while she was on maternity leave. And I had gotten my associate license and hadn't even seen an individual client as a LPC associate. And I took over her group. We, co-led for like two groups, and then
Mm.
she left, and and then I did that group and still had no idea what I was doing. But we got weekly supervision from John Howard's father-in-law, Jev Sykes, who had been leading groups for like 40 years.
Mm.
Um, and he was trained by Scott Rattan, who I think has written
Mm. Mm-hmm.
a
Yeah,
number of,
Jen Stone and Shay.
yep, that book. And so yeah, he volunteered to meet with the four of us that were subbing for this other therapist groups on a weekly basis, and I learned a lot from him, so that was helpful.
Mm. Cool. All right. Well,
All
let's,
right. Nice. That was fun.
yeah, great.
I wish we could keep talking.
We didn't really
I
talk
know.
about what we initially said we would, but
But that's just like group. Not that you necessarily say you're going to talk about things. Sometimes you do. But yeah,
right.
just it has a very organic flow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's so many different topics that we can cover in this podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can certainly revisit the original premise of what people might think group is that is keeping them from giving it a try.
Yeah. I was thinking about this in the car the other day, and just remembering what I had wanted to say about group, and just one of the biggest takeaways is like really understanding how I impact other people. I mean, not that that's all of what's been so important about group for me, but it's really just given me a better understanding and sort of feeling more solid in myself. And I think if I don't know, I'm just imagining if people knew that that's a possibility, that why wouldn't they be like running out to join a process group?
Right.
Um,
And just knowing how you feel any given moment is still a challenge for me. And I think a very valuable practice to have that intention to, okay, I'm going to sit here with these people and notice what I'm feeling the entire time and what's keeping me from saying it.
hmm
And what's keeping me from maybe even feeling it in the first place.
Yeah, there's so much deep learning and experiences that can come from group.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have more episodes we can make.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for listening to the Present Moment Process Podcast, the official podcast of the Asheville Group Psychotherapy Society. For more information, you can visit our website at ashevillegroups.org or email us at presentmomentprocess@gmail.com.